Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sanderlanche podcast special episode number 2 of our Baby Break series. Today,
yeah. Is that what we're calling them? Baby breaks?
That's the first episode that I put up is called Baby Break 1.
Baby break.
So I'm Data, and with me is
it's Joe.
That's it. No one else, just us.
Yeah,
and
I'm sorry again.
We are going to continue what we started last week with the 1-star reviews of The Final Empire, and this time we're going to look at some 1-star reviews of one of the more contentious books of the series, The Well of Ascension.
Oh boy.
So we will see how much we agree or do not agree with what the people are saying this time. So hang on to something, everybody. The Sanderlanche is about to begin.
From Omega to Mars, from the council to the seediest bars, from the reaches of space to the pillars of a starry grace. There are battle wombitarians lacking in humility. Turians are bragging about their reach and flexibility. The clutter of the city spreads to the lowliest stars. But no matter what scars you bear, whatever uniform you wear, you can fight like a Krogan, run like a leopard, but you'll never be better than Commander Shepard.
So, this week we're doing The Well of Ascension, and let me start out with the numbers on this one, which I meant to do last time and left off the beginning. So, on Amazon, there are 4,800 ratings of this book, and 52 of them are 1 star. So, that's
a pretty small margin.
It's about 1%.
Yeah.
Right in the 1% area. And
that's surprising for me because of I feel like this book is polarizing, so I'm a little surprised that it's such a small percentage.
And I feel like you got to keep in mind that probably the people reading the second book are the people who really like the first book to start with. So all those people who left 1-star reviews in the first book probably didn't come this far, right?
That's a good point.
So you got to take that into account to some degree here. And on Goodreads, there are 323,000 ratings.
Wow.
Of this book, and there are 2,233 1-star. So that is less than it says 0% here.
Yeah.
So yeah, and when you move up, there's only 1% 2-star and 10% 3-star. There's 51% 5-star on this book. So
yeah. So the major consensus is that this book is good.
Yeah, people like it overall. So in case, and I guess I didn't really intro it very well at the beginning, in case you're not aware of what we're doing here, you missed last time. Dac and Jaymee had a baby, and so they're taking a little time off to get their new baby in the house life sorted out, get accustomed to what that's like. And in the meantime, we're trying to find something else to entertain you guys. So I have gone to Goodreads and Amazon and pulled out some 1-star reviews of this book, and we're going to read them and we're going to discuss them and see what we think, how right they are, how wrong they are, mostly wrong. Obviously.
Yeah. Also, if you're not listening to these in order, I mean, come on.
Maybe somebody new showed up and they're like, I'll just
you're right.
Listen to this first episode. They won't know who Dac and Jaymee are if they're brand new. But
yeah, it's not just us two normally. So please, if you already hate us, there's more people usually that are here.
Yeah, they're much better than us, obviously. So.
Yes, they've got accents. They're fantastic.
Tune into one of those episodes.
Right. Exactly. Put this one aside for now. Come back to this one. Put this one aside. Go listen to another episode, preferably the first episode. If you've never listened to it, that's probably the best one to start with.
So, I guess let's move into these things. Talking. So, this book, my least favorite of the trilogy, but that's like saying that one of the original Star Wars trilogy is your least favorite, where you're like, this is still a super classic trilogy, and I like all these books. But this is, of the 3, if you got to put one at the bottom, this one is the bottom one for me.
It's definitely on the bottom for me too. So I think we are on the same page on that.
I'm more open to criticism on this one than on the Final Empire, probably, like the ones we did last week. So let's start out with we'll start with another short one. This one is from M on Goodreads, and it says, I've got a new proper title for this novel. I Shouldn't Have Done That, a teenage drama carnage.
Is that the whole review?
Yeah.
I mean, look, Vin makes some mistakes, obviously. Would I go that far? 'Cause, like, would I say it's the Steve Urkel of the Mistborn books? I don't know. I don't feel like that's what's happening here. I just think that there are some certain parts of the book where it falls flat. For me, the ending really falls flat, but that's my personal opinion. But saying the whole book is I shouldn't have done that. I mean, I guess when you get to the end and she releases Ruin, I could understand
I think that's
how you feel about
I
it.
shouldn't have done that. Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, and he's right. This person is right. There's several points in the book where she does things, and you're like, oh yeah, she shouldn't have done that. Like when she pretty much destroys Set's entire like army and almost kills him. It's like, yeah, you shouldn't have done that.
Anytime Zane is around, you can just say, yeah, she probably shouldn't do the things that she does.
Exactly.
Until her last interaction with him.
She was pretty confused, and she's getting prodded by Ruin a lot in this book, even though we don't know that's what's going on. She is getting prodded by him a lot, I feel like. Going back and rereading sections, it's like it's pretty clear that he is pushing her to do things. So I get it. But at the same time, I feel like Vin is probably not the worst part of the book. So to put that as your summary of like the 1-star review, I feel like that's not really looking at the book as a whole and taking what's good and what's bad out of it.
An interesting choice to be like, would I call this the Steve Urkel of, and for some reason my first thought was no, clearly it's like the Stefan Urkel of that's a very deep Family Matters cut.
Yeah, it is. I mean, let's go back in the 90s machine and watch some Family Matters.
Oh goodness. Okay, so let's look at another one here. P Dreadful on Goodreads rated 1 star and said, skim through it. That's because the characters, for the most part, simply while away their time talking and there's very little action. What was even more ridiculous was Tindwyl suggesting that Vin go shopping with her to take her mind off things. Answer this, reader. If you were responsible for protecting a city, knowing that there were thousands of inhabitants who were depending upon you to save them, would you go shopping? Sigh. This book fails to live up to my expectations, though the parts about the mists acquiring a mind of their own, and the part about the deepness, which reminded me of Tartarus, was good enough.
Good enough.
Good enough for 1 star.
I guess. Interesting that he harps on the Tindwyl and the shopping thing. Honestly, that doesn't bother me that much. The stakes at the point where she goes shopping, I don't feel like the stakes are super, super high at that point yet.
No, yeah, they're kind of sitting around waiting to see what happens. So
now his other stuff about them just kind of hanging out, talking. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I agree with that to an extent. It's like all the political talk is a bit much for me. I mean, I don't want to watch C-SPAN. I definitely don't want to read C-SPAN. And is this more interesting than C-SPAN? Of course it is. But I just wanted there to be more action throughout. I feel like the most action we get, besides the end when the siege, finally happens, breaks, whatever you want to say, the most action we get is when Vin like pals around with Zane, and all that stuff kind of makes you feel gross because you're like, Zane's a bad dude.
Mm-hmm.
So I get it, but at the same time, I can't really put it all on Tindwyl and shopping. I mean, come on, girls gotta shop. Somebody's gotta shop.
A recurring theme among a lot of the 1 stars that I read. People hate Tindwyl in those reviews.
Really?
And yeah, they're all like, they added this horrible female character. Okay, there's some complaints in general that are very fair about the series that Brandon has acknowledged, that there's not as many female characters. He's like, if I went back today, I would write more women into the story. He's like, I was so focused on making Vin this powerful female protagonist that I neglected to think more. But so in the reviews, they're like, yeah, and there's like 3 whole women in this book, and one of them is like this idiot, like Vin calls her a thing. That talking about Alrian. And then people are like, and Tindwyl is the worst. She's like this cold, and people don't like Tindwyl in these negative reviews, and I feel like it's a little bit harsh.
Yeah, I feel like Tindwyl actually may have been one of the characters I liked more in the book. And I remember when she first came onto page, Dac was very much like, oh, I don't like this woman at all. And I was like, well, you have to like think about it from her perspective. She feels like she's got a job to do, and she's got to whip this dude into shape, and so she does it. So I feel like she's a good character. I really like her. I also like the the kind of unrequited love between her and Sazed, because Tinwell to me is like the kind of person that was the only kind of person that Sazed could have been with, because Sazed is so like, I'm not going to put myself out there, I'm not going to put myself between them, she could never want me, I'm not, I'm not worth that kind of thing. And she's like, no, just tell me you want me, and like we can be and we'll be together. Like you just gotta do it. So I feel like her character is actually very different from a lot of the other characters we saw in the series, and I think brought a lot of good. I mean, she made Elend into a good king. She helped make him into a good king, because before she shows up, I mean, after the first book, when Elend becomes king, I was just like, this guy can't be king.
Mm-hmm.
And if Tinwell doesn't show up and she doesn't do what she does, then that dude he was never gonna make it. So
it's true.
I think she's an important character. I think she's a really good character. So if you guys don't like Tinwell and all these 1-star people are harshing on her, I'm just like, whoa. People have to be complex too. You can't just have like a character that everybody likes all the time.
Well, and it's interesting because like we get in the first book, Sazed is like the source of wisdom, and there's not a whole lot other. Maybe Dachshund is like the voice of reason a lot, and everyone else is just like nuts basically. And so we get Tinwell in this one, who is also the source of a lot of wisdom, but in a very different way from Sazed. And I like that. Like these are both keepers, they're both terracemen, they both are working towards this goal, but they are very different about how they do it. And I like seeing that. We don't see all that many terracemen. I mean, these are the two that we get to know basically in these books.
Yeah, 100%.
People. Okay, this one's interesting. So Reyna says, interesting. Reyna, it lists what shelves in Goodread a person has. You can create shelves and sort it by like what kind of book this is, into which of your shelves it goes. And Reyna's shelves are fantasy. Well, the shelves where this book is fantasy. That makes sense. Male authors and white authors. So I guess those all fit. He's male and white.
Yeah, I just never have thought about putting like associating it specifically with him being male and white.
Yeah, well, it's probably easy for us to say that, not being women. I've heard a lot of complaints where it's just like there's not enough women writers getting a lot of attention and so on. So when you're a female, maybe it makes more sense to be like more sensitive to that. You don't have this male privilege that we have going.
It's true.
So what Reyna says is, wow, what a mess. A love triangle and the least romantic wedding of all time. I didn't come here for this. And then there's like a list of bullet points here. The first one is Vin and Elend have no chemistry. And the second one is the only way I know Vin and Elend love each other is because they periodically think it to themselves in the narrative. The third one, Vin and Elend have a terrible relationship where they're both very bad at communicating and thinks neither of them deserve the other. Then the fourth one is Zane's quote unquote God voice was never explained except to say that he was crazy. And it's not fully clear why Vin was supposed to save him. The next one is Allrianne and Breeze, real gross. The next one is Allrianne becomes a throwaway character at the end. And then I kind of forgot they got married in the middle because it's not important and is never, ever mentioned again. And the last bullet point is lots of, quote unquote, people will use you and leave you to Vin. And Vin being like, no, I have friends and we trust each other, which was hammered home 50 different times. And then the end of the review says, also, who was the first person to eat chunks of metal for funsies? Okay, maybe that last one's valid.
I mean, I guess. But at the same time, it's like, well, we're in the second book now, so if you're still thinking about that, you've got more important things going on.
So she really does not like this Vin and Elend relationship.
Well,
or
probably,
the wedding or any of that.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the worst their relationship is, and I would say up until they get married. I think that's the turning point for them, because for Vin it all happens really fast, right? She's like, oh, I don't know about Elend. Okay, I know about him now. I want to get married. Let's do it.
Yeah,
so
well, once she makes up her mind, she makes up her mind.
Exactly. So I feel like that's kind of the turning point for their relationship. But I can see, I mean, these people are obviously pretty broken in different ways. So I can see why it's like not super exciting to read about. But and again, I don't know this user's preferences as far as books go, but I mean, it's I would say that their relationship is a lot less messed up than a relationship between a teenage girl and a mythical creature. So, it's just something you got to deal with, I guess.
Okay, so I don't know that. Okay, Vin and Ellen have a terrible relationship where they're bad at communicating, and they think neither deserves the other. They are bad at communicating, and they do have this thing where they think neither of them deserves the other. I feel like that struck me as very realistic of young person relationships, where it's just like you're so in your own head, because neither of them has really had a relationship before, so you're so in your own head about like what are they thinking, what is this that. And scared to talk about that kind of thing, that I feel like it felt realistic to me.
100%. And I don't know, maybe this user's not thinking about their ages, which Ellen, I mean, he's 20 something, but I feel like in the first book, we kind of get the sense that he's kind of a man child. Like he thinks all these big thoughts and has all these big ideas, but he's never been put in a position where he had to put like his ideas into action again with people like opposing him.
Yeah.
Until this book. And then we have to remember Vin's still a teenager at this point. So, yeah, it does sound like teenage love. It sounds like the first girlfriend or boyfriend you have where you're like, I don't know if she likes me for real. I don't know if he likes me for real. I'm definitely not good enough to be with this person. They deserve somebody better than me. Like if when you were a teenager and you were in a relationship and you didn't think that, I'm wondering what you were thinking, because I was never confident in myself enough to be like, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good enough for her.
that makes you a douche when that's the way you're like, yep,
right,
exactly. I'm the best.
Yeah.
Oh,
so yeah, their relationship is not super super healthy, but at the same time, does anyone have a perfect relationship? And like you said, I think it makes it more realistic. It's like, well, yeah, that's the kind of thing that happens in relationships. We don't value ourselves enough to think that we should be with the other person, so then we end up pushing each other away.
And there's one other bullet that I would pull out, because she's explaining Zane's God voice was never explained except to say he was crazy, and it's not clear why Vin was supposed to save him. So Zane's God voice isn't really explained. It's kind of like at the end, it's kind of hinted at, I guess, that this was Ruin, and we made that connection when going through and after you get to the end and Ruin is released.
Right.
But it's not explained because it's kind of left for the next book almost to find out more about that, which maybe that part's a valid complaint, that this was a big story point and then you left it open until the next book, even though I feel like there's enough information there to make the connection. But to say that it's fully clear why Vin was supposed to, quote, save him, he's like, you know why I thought you were supposed to save me? Because you're the only one the voice didn't tell me to kill. Like that was his whole explanation for it. So we couldn't get any more, because he really is kind of crazy, and that's why he thought that.
Right. Yeah. And also, like, in the end, if you were going to get right down to it, she wasn't supposed to save him. He just says that to her to get her to manipulate her, to get her to do, to be with him, to do what she wants or do what he wants her to do. So like in the end, she's not supposed to save him. He had a reason for it, but she's not. I don't know that there was a whole lot to redeem in this dude. So plus, if they had gone off like into whatever you want to call it, the sunset, I mean, yeah, Ruin wouldn't have been released, so the death of the planet would have been at the same pace, but the planet was still gonna, like, the mists and everything were still gonna screw up the planet a lot. So that wouldn't have worked out anyway.
Well, and I'm not sure that Ruin wouldn't have been released, because when he's like, where would you go? And she's like, I want to go find the Well of Ascension up in the north. And he's like, okay, well, let's go do that then. So I think that we would have ended up on the same track that she eventually ends up with Ellen, where they start heading north, and then she realizes, oh no, it's back there, and then goes.
Yeah. I'd forgotten about that part. You're right. So it's like they would have probably just both been prodded by Ruin. It's like, no, the Well of Ascension's not actually up there. It's down here.
I'm going to agree with the Allrain and Breeze gross bit there, because she is 16 and Breeze is like however old he is. But
is that how old she is? She's 16?
I think that's right. Hold on, now I'll look, because at one point he's like, shouldn't you be in bed or something? And she's like, I'm this old, not like 7. Yeah. Let me bring up my Kindle.
Which really, and to her point, because this is just the second book that this user's reading, Arianne really isn't Arianne isn't really fleshed out much at all until the third book, and even then, she's kind of just tertiary in the background.
Well, yeah, and that was one of her complaints here. So Arianne becomes a throwaway character by the end, which
right.
I don't know. I mean, she makes a pretty big difference in turning Set's army around and all that. So I don't know that I could call her throwaway exactly, but she's definitely not super well fleshed out.
Right. Like I said, not throwaway, but definitely tertiary. She's just not.
Yeah.
She's not one of the main characters. She's not even one of the secondary characters. She's just kind of there.
Okay, so he says, oh no, I'm sorry, I was wrong. He says, shouldn't you be in bed or something? And she says, it's only 9 o'clock, Breeze. I'm 18, not 10.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm almost certain she was at least an adult by our standards, anyway.
By the third book, I agree the age difference is gross and stuff. By the third book, we find out that they're really kind of extremely well suited for each other. And even in this book, you find out that she's the one who's been working to seduce him this whole time because she kind of really admires him. So yeah, I think it's still kind of gross, but I don't think it's like as gross as it would be if it was the other way around, where Breeze is like, oh, this is a hot young girl, I'm gonna seduce her.
Yeah, he seems almost very, and again, it's not saying that this makes it better, but he's very much like, I don't know, I don't think this is a good idea. And she's really foisting herself on him with all the writing and stuff. Again, not saying that makes it better, because obviously there's situations where that kind of stuff happens and it's still inappropriate. So
yeah.
but she is considered an adult, so I feel like, while gross, I mean, hey, I'm not giving amnesty towards Breeze or the person I'm about to mention, but Dick Van Dyke is like 46 years older than his wife. People do weird stuff.
Also, in fantasy worlds, it's not like that unusual to have like that sort of age gap in most scenarios, which doesn't make it less gross in other books where it's like this old dude marrying a like 15-year-old girl or whatever. But
you're right.
It is common in the genre.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the only one that we're supposed to feel kind of okay about in fantasy books that I've read is Harry Potter with Lupin and Tonks. She like wants to be with him, and he's like, I don't know, we're too young. You're too young. Like, you're way younger than me, and also I'm a werewolf. Like, I don't want to do that. But I mean, she's definitely already an adult because she's out of school. She's been working for a few years as an Auror, so little different.
I never really did feel weird about that. I mean, and even him, he's like, he does say I'm too old for you, but I always felt like it was more of the fact that he's like, I'm too he's like, I'm too old and dangerous for you, but I felt like the dangerous part was the part that made the bigger difference for him, where he's like,
right. Well, he's like, I'm a werewolf. I don't want to, like, and also, I don't know if they mention it in the books, but like, and I don't know that we ever get an answer, but it's like, how would being werewolf affect children?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that they ever address that, but.
I don't know. I don't think they do. We hear very little about Teddy Lupin, just that he comes over to the Potter's house all the time and that he's dating like Fleur and Bill's daughter.
Yeah, which is weird.
And he's raised by his grandmother, the only survivor of that family after that last book.
Yeah,
like everybody dies in that last book.
Yeah, Narcissa doesn't die, so I guess she survives.
Well, no, but okay, that's true, because she's her sister. I totally forgot that she's sisters with Bellatrix and Narcissa.
Yeah.
But it's not like you're going to let Narcissa raise your kids. So.
No, certainly not. Certainly not. But yeah, she's Narcissa's still around, and I guess Lucius is too, because I don't think he technically died.
No, yeah, neither of them is dead. They both made it to the end.
Right.
Because there's no justice in the world.
Do you really think that? Well, I guess they did kill people. I was about to say, do you really think that they deserved to die? But I mean, I guess they did kill a lot of
all
people.
Of the voluntary Death Eaters probably should have been like executed or something.
Yeah, or at least put on
Azkaban.
trial. Well, and that's the thing. Maybe that's where they are. Maybe Narcissa and Lucius are in Azkaban.
I feel like and maybe it's like something else I read elsewhere. It might have even been in that play, but I feel like because of what they do at the end, where Narcissa basically makes it possible to win, that they get off.
Yeah, or maybe like Harry says, no, like, don't try them for these crimes. Like, just let them move on with their lives.
They've learned the folly of their ways.
Yeah, it only took threat of death of their firstborn son, but
Okay. So anyway. Harry Potter side
the Harry Potter digression.
Yep. Okay, so we're this other tiny one. Steve on Goodreads said teenaged girl angst and the world's dumbest quote unquote king. That's it.
I mean, there is teenage angst,
Yeah.
but she is a teenager, so you can expect some of that. I think, and I'm not as big of a reader of these as you, but is there a lot of teenage angst in the Percy Jackson books or no?
Let me think. I feel like not really. There's not a whole lot of like relationship drama in those books. There's a little bit by the end, but yeah, it's more about the story of what's going on. Mm-hmm. By the last book or two, there's clearly some like tension between the two main characters, and actually for the last like three books, there's some tension there, but I don't think it goes to the point of angst really. Although by the end, I was like, come on, it's clear they're going to get together. Just do it, and can we be done with that? So it does get to you, but I don't think it's not as angsty as Vin for sure. Although I have read much more angsty teen stuff before, so I.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're going to read a book with a teenager in it and you're not expecting some teen angst, then I feel like maybe you're kind of doing that to yourself. Like your expectations are not where they should be in that sense. And then what was the other point? Dumbest king.
The world's dumbest king, yeah.
I mean, look, we talked about this. I mean, I was worried about him when at the end of the first book, but then Tinwell comes in and I really feel like things change. But of course you have to remember this guy's starting from scratch. He's starting from zero. Like he knows about the law, but he's starting from zero in terms of like, what do I do when people oppose me? Because basically he sets himself up to fail. He's like, if I'm ever opposed by people, they can take me out of power. Like that's a bad way to go, because there's always going to be people that disagree with you, always. And eventually that side's going to be large enough that they're going to be able to oppose you and depose you if that's the way you build into the system. So this guy obviously had noble intentions, but didn't have like the king knowledge to know like, hey, this isn't going to work. If we're going to do this, we're going to have to do it a certain way. So well,
and that's because nobody's really used another political system for 1,000 years. So it's all theoretical until you tried it.
Right. It's like it's the same kind of people that say like, well, communism looks great on paper. Well, yeah, of course it does. But does it ever actually work that way? No, it doesn't.
I think we would have agreed at the beginning of the book, after the ending of the first book, like, okay, this is an idiot. Why is he king? But that kind of just makes his story arc in this book all the better, because you see him grow and become kind of worthy of the place that he eventually holds.
Yeah, for sure. Because if he hadn't changed, then really what would his story have been? Mm-hmm. Like husband to Vin, guy who is king, who's good at being king, I guess.
Right.
Like
that's really interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's no like, yeah, I get it. You're frustrated because he's dumb, but like he's frustrated that he's dumb. Like he does several dumbs in the book, and he's like, gosh, why can't I get this right?
Okay, so here's one of the ones. I think this may be the only one I actually took where the Tinwell hate comes up. But Ben on Goodreads said this book was so boring. They introduced this wise woman character who is the dumbest character ever, and they pair her with Sazed, who is already insufferable as it is. I think Sanderson is good at writing stories, but he needs to get better at writing characters. It seems like he doesn't have any plan with any of the characters. He just goes like, let me make this chosen one character be a person with a mental illness, and let's see where it gets me. Come on, man. You can do better.
That's a very interesting take. I would argue that Sazed is probably one of the most interesting characters, in my opinion.
Yeah, we love Sazed. So the Sazed is insufferable part immediately makes me like, I don't like you.
Here at the Sanderlanche podcast, we like Sazed.
Our official position is Sazed is cool.
We are pro Sazed. And of course, we also have the hindsight of the third book. But but yeah, it's like Tinwell is not that bad. And her relationship with Sazed, I think, is probably the best part about her at the end. And also, like, people have problems. Like, you can't just say, oh, you've made the chosen one somebody with a mental illness. Like, that's kind of fucked up, honestly, to say that. like to say, why would you do that? And I find it very funny because I feel like that is Sanderson's thing is writing character development and relationships. And he's like, he's pretty good, but he's not good with characters. I'm just like, what? What are you talking about? The whole book is about the characters. Like the world, especially in the third book, like the world ending is like, it's this thing that keeps coming in the background.
Yeah.
But the whole book is dialogue between the characters about how to like be better, how to work better together, how to survive, how to do life in these circumstances, and also how to be friends with one another, how to be good husband and wife, how to communicate well. Like that's all character stuff. And I feel like the second book's chock full of it too. You've got Ellen trying to become a king. You've got Vin trying to figure out who she is, how she feels about herself, what her relationship is like. You've got Sazed, who's a eunuch, who's like, I can't be with a woman. I literally can't be physically with a woman. So why would I like do this? And then you've got Tinwell, who's like, that's not what I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for the Bob or whatever. You like, like she's the whole thing is character development. So I feel like his assessment is just way off.
Yeah, it's true that like the third book, it's always like the world's ending, but we don't know how to deal with that. So we have to deal with what we can deal with. And then at the end, the world ending part kind of works itself out through what they've been doing. But they never have a plan. Maybe you could say towards the end, Vin comes up with a kind of a plan. But even she never has, like, her plan is to go and try to get Ruin to put her in so much danger she can draw on the mists, and maybe that will do something. So
and then it did.
It did. Almost pure luck if it wasn't for Marsh being able to get out for a moment and do something. But yeah, they never really have a solid plan for trying to save the world. That's just like, we'll try to do something about that, I guess. It really is more focused on characters.
Well, we'll try to save the planet at some point, maybe, if we can. I'm not sure how to do it, though.
Yeah, no clue how.
And also, like, we're going to have to communicate with each other, but we're not going to be able to say it out loud. So let's try to do that the best we can.
Okay, let's see. This one from Eric says, I'm bailing on this one. I got most of the way through it. The first volume of this trilogy showed a lot of promise, but the second has devolved so entirely into repetitive melodrama and bad romance writing, without the sex, in parentheses, that I can't take it anymore. The character Vin has been jumping up and down on my last nerve for hundreds of pages now. I'm such a terrible person because I killed people in a war using my superpowers. I'm not good enough for Ellen. I'm going to go in a corner and wallow in self-pity for 200 pages. If this thing had been condensed a lot, it would have been the exact sort of thing I would have loved to read when I was 13 and reading like Edgar Rice Burroughs and Terry Brooks. But now, I really don't have time for this stuff. They say Sanderson's new series is a lot better. Frankly, it would have to be a lot better. It's probably the Stormlight Archive he's talking about. But...
Wow. This guy, look, man, right off the bat, I'm going to say, if you feel like characters that have a problem with murdering people is a bad thing, like, dude, murdering people's not good. It's not good in
By
war.
the way, in case you weren't aware.
Yeah. I know the other two aren't here, but I'm taking a hard stance on this. Murdering people is bad.
That's the new official stance.
Yeah, it's the official stance of the Sanderlanche podcast. Well, I'll get confirmation from Jaymee and Dac later. But yeah, murdering people. But murdering people, I'm going to say is bad. Right?
There's the next T-shirt right there. Murdering people is bad. Official stance.
Perfect. It's the official stance at the Sanderlanche podcast that murdering people is bad. Yes, it is bad. Even when you have to do it for war, because your country is going to be taken over. Even when it's your boyfriend's ex-girlfriend and she's trying to kill you, like murdering people is still not that great in those circumstances. So yeah, if she has some inner turmoil because she's having to kill people, I would call that realistic growth. Like she's not a sociopath because she has feelings about how she's killing people. Like that's completely good that she feels that way. That tells us that she's not a crazy, insane sociopath who doesn't care about getting anything. In fact, that makes her, and we get this in Secret History, but that makes her better than Kelsier. Because Kelsier killed a lot of people, and I don't think he cared that much about the people he killed.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very That's a very distinguishing moment between the two of them, because we never saw, no matter how many people he killed, Kelsier feel bad about it.
Right. And like, also we see the same thing in book 3 with Ellen. Of course, this user didn't read that, I'm assuming.
Right.
But it's like Ellen, it goes to show, like, Vin and Ellen, they're good people. They don't want to kill people. They're having to do it. And they're like, I don't know how I feel about this. Especially after we find out that Koloss are people and Ellen's like having to murder so many of them. It's just like, geez.
Well, and to force them to, like, when they first find out, he's still got that army, and he's like, and we're like, is it right to like force these people to control them like that? And then eventually, like, he loses control. He never really had it in the first place.
Yeah.
So, and then he has to kill a whole lot of them.
Right. So, sorry, man, you're way off base here, because because if you think it's dumb or a snooze fest to have people talk about their relationships or talk about how they're sad about killing people, then I don't know what you want, man. Again, this goes back to I'm gonna draw Harry Potter back again, because I love drawing off of that well. Harry doesn't want to kill anyone. He doesn't even really want to kill Voldemort. There are moments when he's mad and he's angry and he wants somebody to pay or for justice to be served. But at the end of the book, he doesn't shoot a killing curse at Voldemort.
Nope.
He shoots Expelliarmus at him. All he wanted to do was disarm Voldemort at the end of the day. And that ends up killing him because of the rebound or whatever, the magic that's involved there. But that's Harry. He's a good guy. He's a good dude. And it's the same with these people. Like, they're good people. She's having to murder people she doesn't want to. Her master trained her to murder people because that's what he did. And she's having to do it because it's murder or be murdered. But it's definitely not bad that she's thinking about these things.
Also, I got to throw in the snootiness of being like, yeah, maybe this is the kind of thing I would like when I was 13, reading like Edgar Rice Burroughs and Terry Brooks. I'm like, okay, just that's an asshole take. Where it's like,
yeah, that's true. It's like, dude, what have you written? Have you written a book better than Terry Brooks or Edgar Rice Burroughs?
Like, I'm gonna look down my nose at Edgar Rice Burroughs and his fucking John Carter of Mars or Tarzan or all that, all the shit that's super famous.
Classics of literature made into movies. Come on, man, don't be like that.
Oh man.
I mean, I have opinions, and I don't like some books, but I'm not gonna be like, maybe I would have liked this when I was 10.
Oh man, just like looking down my nose at all of you people.
Yeah. What have you written, sir? Some fan fiction?
It turns out that Eric here? He's a really famous author, actually. So.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea who Eric is.
Yeah, I know. It's true. This man has no dick. Well, that's what I heard.
That's what I heard. That poor actor.
It's probably my favorite line from that movie, though. Well, that's what I heard.
Yeah, as he's being like shoved back, he's like, "What? That's what I'm just saying." It's like, what's the thing that you say in videos so that you can't be sued? It's like supposedly or purportedly or something.
Yeah. It's like, oh look, it's just hearsay here. I mean, that's what I heard.
Oh man. Okay, let's do this. This is kind of a long one, but we'll do this one here. Riff. And by the way, we were talking about shelves earlier. This person shelved this book under a shelf called genre, and then under a shelf called awfulness.
Oh wow.
So, yeah. Riff was serious about not liking this one, as we will see momentarily. The Well of Ascension is the second book in Sanderson's sprawling Mistborn series, continuing the story of magic user Vin and her quest to save her people and rid her world of a mysterious, sinister force known as the Deepness. The
Sounds
first
good
book,
so far.
I think that's a little like grandiose way of putting it, but okay.
Sure.
The first book, The Final Empire, was as flawed as it was impressive. But I have to be completely frank. In my opinion, The Well of Ascension is a terrible novel that has left me disappointed to the point of anger. In my review of the previous book, I noted that although the characters seem superficial and burdened with some terrible inner monologue, it was mitigated to some extent by Sanderson's requisite rendition of action, the interesting world he'd conceived, and a plot that was dynamic and at times quite thrilling. In The Well of Ascension, however, all of these qualities are muted. The action is less frequent and less interesting. The plot is stagnant and tedious, and the story itself, well, it's near terrible. One expected this to be a book, and when he says one expected, I assume he's like, I expected, but I guess Riff could be a female name. I don't know who, which we'll say Riff.
Right.
One expected this to be a book of high adventure, of a dynamic hero or heroine? Question mark. Not wasn't sure whether it was the hero or heroine. Okay. Quest finally made the most of Sanderson's world, which was so rich with promise. What you get, for the most part, is a 400-page siege of a city where nothing actually happens for 350 pages, a laugh-out-loud, cliched antagonist, kill them all, said God, and an uninspired, anachronistic political discussions. If this were the extent of it, I'd have given the book 2 stars, but the conclusion to the book is so offensive to the reader that it has made me resent reading this book at all. Sanderson has attempted to add an epic twist to the end of the tale, which is a respectable convention in literature, but is one that is insulting, nonsensical, and hugely disappointing. Some stories might end in triumph, some in tragedy, but this book ends with a slap in the face for whatever you've invested into this world and these characters. It is egregious and breaks all good faith. I had planned to at least read the 3rd book in the series, but this was the final straw. I doubt I'll ever pick up a Brandon Sanderson book again.
Wow. Now, what I will say about this guy is I feel like he really thought out his response when he wrote this review, and it does sound like he tried to give the book a chance. He apparently has some faults with the 1st book, but he still really enjoyed it. So I would say that a lot of the things he said I actually agree with to an extent, for sure. I was shocked at the ending and a little and upset with it, as people who listen to that episode will remember. But I feel like to say it's egregious and that the story is terrible, I don't agree with that part. The story is not terrible. Is it the kind of story I wanted to read after reading the 1st book? No, but it doesn't mean that it's terrible. He certainly constructed the story, in my opinion, well. The construction of it is done well. The character development is done well. So there's a lot of good things about the Well of Ascension. So if you're saying that the story is terrible simply based on the actual events that occur, maybe there's some merit to that, but there's so much more going on in the book that's interesting. I feel like it's a little over the top to say that it's terrible.
I'm going to agree that this person makes some good points, and some of them are just more over the top than I think are fair, where it's just like, yeah, this is all terrible. The everyone's inner monologues were horrible, and the action was less interesting. I don't know. She exploded some dude's head. There was some pretty interesting action in there. I maybe
it's pretty different.
Maybe overall, there was definitely less like fight scenes through most of the book. Although there's the one giant like war scene at the end, which maybe kind of makes up for it, or towards the end. But I can agree. Maybe the fight scenes are less frequent. Maybe less interesting. That's kind of a matter of opinion, right? Whether this fight is more interesting than this other fight. So fine. The plot felt stagnant in the middle. I think we kind of all agree with that we felt it dragged in the middle. And so even saying that like it's a 400-page siege where nothing happens for 350 pages, that's a little bit of an exaggeration. But okay, I get what you're going for there, and I'm not completely disagreeing. I don't agree with the hate on the twist, because I feel that in all the books I've read, this twist is one that was written so well because it's really well foreshadowed, but in ways that you don't expect it, which is like, that's the perfect twist is what I'm describing, where it's like all the clues were there, but you never expect the twist when you get to it. And that is what I feel like was done in this book. And it's once again a little snooty to be like, so he tries for this twist, which a twist is a respectable convention in literature, but this one is insulting. And I'm like, okay, so thanks for letting us know that the twist isn't a respectable literary convention. I appreciate that. But I feel like that is really well done here.
Yeah, and I feel like the crux of a lot of fantasy is some kind of twist. Here I go. I'm going to draw from that Harry Potter.
I was about to say, Harry Potter's got to be coming back here. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. The first book, man, what a twist. You don't expect it to be Quirrell at the end.
No, I didn't expect it to be Quirrell. And once again, there's some foreshadowing there.
Yeah, for sure.
Pretty well done. Yeah. But yeah, no, I didn't expect it to be Quirrell.
And I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, but the biggest foreshadowing in the book series, I feel, which I didn't discover until years after the last book had come out, was in the first book. The centaurs say that Firenze helping Harry is going against the stars, And Harry says, I guess they saw Voldemort killing me, and they're in the forest.
They're in the forest,
face to face with Voldemort. And in the 7th book, he's for all intents and purposes, killed in the forest by Voldemort. So that's a huge, huge foreshadowing from 1993 or 4, whenever that first book came out, to 2007. I mean, that's crazy. It's crazy. So I feel like that's the crux of a lot of fantasy is twists.
I feel like one of the things that really helps the twist in the first Harry Potter book is that the entire book, because it's written for a very young audience, right? So it's written in a very straightforward way. And so when you get to it's built up where you're supposed to think it's Snape. And they're very confident about who they think the bad guy is. And we've not been given any reason to kind of doubt their confidence, because the whole story is told in a very straightforward way. And then you get there and it's like, oh, it's Quirrell. It makes sense, but you don't expect it because there hasn't been any other indication that there's going to be that they're playing with you. They're going to trick you.
Yeah. And in the chapter where it is him, you can tell that it's written for kids so that they wouldn't be confused, because Quirrell explains everything.
He just comes straight out.
What about this? Quirrell's like, oh, it was this. But what about this? Like, yeah, it's definitely completely straightforward about the way it delivers the surprise at the end. But at the same time, it's still a twist that I think a lot of first time readers didn't see coming in it. And so I feel like that's, and I think what you said is absolutely correct. This twist is done in such a way that's so different from the way we've seen twists in other books, because it's very heavily foreshadowed, because you have these epigraphs and you have them reading the book or the etching in the book, and they're different. And it's like, if you had thought about it, if you had pieced it together, I mean, that's really the whole reason I started writing down the epigraphs in the 3rd book, because I'm like, I have to have this stuff in front of me to make sure that I'm not falling into
fool me twice, won't get fooled again.
Exactly. So thankfully, Elantris doesn't have epigraphs, so I don't have to write them out. But but yeah, I mean,
some other way.
100%. This guy, like we said, well thought out. I think we both agree he's a little over the top with some of his criticisms, and I don't know that it's a super fair review.
All right, let's do one more of these. Marv says, it failed me in every way. Extremely underwhelming compared to the first book, which is a masterpiece. Way less interesting villains. No new discoveries / expanse of the magic system. Nothing added to the world or lore. Politics were pointless and solved for themselves. Out of 3 new characters, only Zane was interesting. The other 2 were irritating and dull. The atmosphere wasn't intense or dystopian anymore, making it much weaker. The magic system no longer matters, as there are now spirits and deities.
I like how he says no additions to the magic system. Like, we talking about, Duralumin's a huge deal in this book. Huge deal.
And feruchemy gets way expanded on. Like, it was there before, but we didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I feel like we added a whole lot to the lore and stuff in this book.
Right. And it's funny because it's like one book, all the books focus on allomancy, but it's like first book focus more on allomancy, second book focus more on feruchemy, and then the third book you really get into like the hemalurgy stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like he did a good job devoting a decent amount of time to each of the magic systems in each book, so that it slowly unfurls for you. You're not being overwhelmed with information. You're getting the information when you need it. Now, as far as the political discourse and some of the other things he said in there, like, yeah, man, hey, I get it. If you don't like political discourse, if you're not into like thrillers of like drama of political type stuff, totally get it. I'm not a West Wing fan myself. You know, it's not something that I'm interested in. Tried it because a lot of my friends like it and they watch it and they love it. I'm not into it, so I get it. But come on, man, it sounds like you weren't even paying that much attention with some of the stuff you were saying.
I'm trying to decide if I agree with the politics were pointless and sorted themselves out. And to some extent, I get where that's coming from, because we have all this political wrangling where Elend's trying to convince the people, and then he's trying to get his throne back. And then at the end, Vin's just like, okay, no, screw all you guys, Elend's going to be emperor. So from that perspective, I get what you're saying. It's like the politics in the end didn't matter because Vin just came in but that's not sorted themselves out. That is Vin being her normal Vin self and being like, okay, Ellen's not here. I'm not dealing with this shit. I'm gonna cut through all of. I don't have the patience for this. So we're gonna cut through all that stuff. Ellen is in charge, or I kill you. So
Yeah.
I don't feel like that's solving itself. I feel like that is our character doing something that is very in character for her to do. So I don't know. I'm kind of two minds on that part of it. But
yeah,
what I will say is the magic system no longer matters, as there are now spirits and deities. If you read the third book, it becomes clear that the magic systems are intimately intertwined with these spirits and deities, and are actually how the magic works is relevant to what is going on.
True. And without Allomancy, they could not have won because they used Allomancy to burn Addie's body. So yeah, 100%. We'll say also the reviewer before last, anyone who now let me be fair, because I agree with this part of it. There is less action, but anybody who says the action was not as good as the first book, I really have to disagree with. When you read about a woman jumping over a wall, landing on a horse, destroying that horse with like a superpower, like flipping around, saving her friends, busting a dude's head open, like exploding his head, when all these cinematic moments, because that was the thing that I think made the action parts good in the second book. Everything seemed more cinematic than the first book. And there are cinematic moments in the first book for sure. But every piece of action I feel like in the second book was pretty cinematic. Her and Zane like taking out all of Set's men, destroying that building, like very, very action oriented in those scenes. So I feel like that was an unfair assessment because, man, some of that stuff's awesome.
I forgot to mention when we were on, now that we're talking about previous reviews, I forgot to mention the one guy who was like talked about, let me pull up the quote so I can say it exactly. But so it said that it was repetitive melodrama and bad romance writing, in parentheses, without the sex. And I was like, so do you feel like the bad romance writing is okay if you did throw some sex in there? Or like, what are you trying to say with that? I'm not sure I'm following you.
Yeah. So if the dialogue was really bad in the romance, like if the dialogue was like, hand me your cock, then he'd be okay because it's bad writing, but they're going to have sex. I think that's what he's getting at. Okay. Like he maybe he likes trashy romance novels, like, where it talks about the vicar taking off his robe or whatever in that Friends episode. Rachel's super into the trashy romance novel. So, and Joey says it's porn. So I guess if he wants book porn porn's okay. Like bad writing's okay if there's book porn.
But you also reminded me of something, and I'm gonna say very, very minor spoiler for a later book of the Wheel of Time. So if you don't want minor spoilers for Wheel of Time, cover your ears for the next 30 seconds. This is data from the future, or still the past for you listening to this, but the future in comparison to what you've just been listening to, unless you're somehow listening to this before I recorded it, which would be really impressive. Anyway, if you actually want to get past all of the spoilers for Wheel of Time, which, like I said, is very minor spoilers for the last book of the series, you want to skip forward to the 54 minutes and 50-second mark of this podcast. But you reminded me with the horse killing thing. We talked about at some point, it was like, does Brandon just hate horses? Like, he's always doing mean things to horses. And it's when I was reading the Wheel of Time, I was just like, Brandon does hate horses. Because there's a horse that you meet in the very first book of the series. And it's like this, they're talking about like it's this dumpy like field horse basically. But she puts this incredible like effort into keeping this one character safe and running with these other horses who are much, sturdier and whatever horses than her. And this horse reappears throughout the entire series just periodically. When somebody's like, we need a calm horse because this person's not good at horseback riding. They're like, oh, well, we'll bring out this horse from the first book and you can ride her. And so then in the last book, one of the ones that Brandon wrote, he kills the horse that has been around the whole series. And I was like, what do you have against horses, Brandon? Why are you being a jerk? But then it turns out that if you read like the encyclopedia or whatever of the Wheel of Time that Robert Jordan's wife / editor came out with based on his notes and stuff after the series was done, it specifically says in there that the horse somehow survived. So it's like
okay.
we can't let Brandon get away with his horse hate. We have to fix that.
The horse killing can't continue. Yeah, that is weird. May want to throw some time codes in there.
Yeah, probably.
But anyway, yeah, horse hate bad.
Why you gotta hate horses? It's just they're cool. I one of the reviews on Amazon, and I won't read the whole thing, but just the title stuck out to me. It says Humiliation Conga, twice as depressing as book 1, unfinishable. I don't know what a humiliation conga is, but I like it. I like it. I'm gonna use that.
Humiliation conga. I mean, this is just one of those things. Like, I need context. Like, what are you talking about? Like, are you humiliated from reading the book? Should Brandon be humiliated for writing the book? Are the characters humiliated in the book? Like, what are we talking about?
Oh man, I gotta find a place to use humiliation conga in life. That's all there is to it.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, next time all the characters get their ass whooped in D&D, you can just be like, oh man, humiliation conga, am I right?
I'm still working on how to play my new character because I need to increase the comedy of the situation where he's evil, and I'm gonna try to have him do evil things, but then just like the worst actor ever. When people call him, it's like, what? No, that clearly was the right thing to do. What are you talking about?
Yeah. What do you mean?
So I gotta work on that.
You're like the cockroach guy from Men in Black. You're just like walking around being like, oh, let me have some of the sugar, water.
In water.
It's like rats in water. Give it to me.
Okay, we got 2 reviews that we need to do. 5-star reviews, obviously. So get ready. The first one is from Andre, who's recently sent us, you may remember Andre from Brazil recently with the art and the emails that he sent us. And he says, awesome friends reading some awesome books. Is it difficult to find a podcast? Oh, I'm sorry. It is difficult to find a podcast so constantly good and fun as this one. Host guy, funny guy, and then in parentheses, better than random guy, won't you say? Volcano guy and other girl represent the essence of the Sanderlanche. It is awesome to see new people introduced to this awesome fantasy universe and to hear their thoughts and reactions to the most iconic moments. Data does an awesome job. He's a longtime Sanderson fan and manages to host the episodes without giving anything away, and at the same time listens to some crazy theories while keeping a quote-unquote straight face. I don't have anything negative to say about them. They make the weeks start way better, making me laugh a lot. Wasing the liking of you.
Oh, man. Awesome. Awesome review. Andre, you, my friend, are a rioter. That was a great review.
And then we have, Andre's review is awesome. Thank you, Andre, from Brazil. It's from Amazon or Apple Podcast Brazil, Amazon Brazil. No. The next one we have is actually from back in June, but somehow my thing missed it. It must be one of the, because I get the outside US reviews from this other program, and so this other program must have missed this particular one when it was collated for me. So it is from JOM024, and it says, best podcast ever. Looking for an awesome podcast? Well, good news, everyone. Whether you're looking for a new series to sink your teeth into, you've already been bitten by the Cosmere bug, or if it's simply Valentine's Day and you've forgotten to get a girlfriend again, this is the podcast for you.
Wow.
I thought that was going to go, if you haven't gotten your girlfriend anything, give her this. But no, okay, this is...
no, it's sorry. Like if you don't have one, if you're a single bro, apparently this is the podcast for you.
Being a self-professed Cosmere-naut, I have listened to many such podcasts, and I can honestly say that this is the best one out there. You can only read a book for the first time once, but this podcast allows me to reignite those feelings of excitement and suspense of going through the Cosmere journey all over again. And it is about the journey, not the destination. The camaraderie of the hosts really feels genuine, and their witty banter throughout makes listening to each episode a true pleasure. Data, being the only one to have read the Cosmere before, does a stupendous job of guiding his co-hosts through the series, being careful not to spoil anything, while simultaneously joining in on the fun of theory crafting. At the end of each episode, Dac, Joe, and Jaymee give their predicaments, for where they're headed next, and I'm not sure which I enjoy more, when they astutely predict what is coming, or when they are famously off, volcanoes. No, Dac, you are never going to live that down. This podcast has everything from laughs to earnest discussion of characters you love to love and characters you love to hate, all peppered with hilarious asides, including our original rap and a story of a father and son possum hunting team just trying to get by. Besides this, the podcast also has a lively Discord channel that's allowed me to gush with others over the contents of the episodes, as well as dive into unlocking some of the deep mysteries of the Cosmere. I would recommend this series and this podcast to everyone and anyone. 5 stars.
Wow, another amazing review. Thank you so much. That was awesome. You, my friend, are a seer.
Ooh, Adium, fancy.
Yep, fancy schmancy.
Okay. Those are those 2. So, for next week, I'm going to plan that we will do the 3rd book, and then we'll find something new and different to do for the 4th week of our co-host absence. But the first episode, the one we recorded last week, will have come out before we record the next episode. So we'll be able to get some feedback on, do people like this? Are there other ideas that people have? So if something else comes out between now and then that sounds way better to me, then maybe we'll do that instead. So we're going to play it by ear a little bit. Other than that, if you would like to send us some emails, you can leave us reviews on Apple Podcasts like these other folks did. But if you'd like to send us some emails, you can find us at thesanderlanche@gmail.com. That is with an E at the end, like the word avalanche. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all of the sorts of places that people are. I put an announcement up on Twitter about what we're going to be doing. Like, hey, there's something different happening than what we originally scheduled for next week. And one of the replies was, sneaking in the entire Way of Kings? A bold move. Let's see if it pays off.
Oh, no. Why?
Yeah, we're just going to read like one of the biggest books and do it in 1 week. Why not? Just for lols.
That would be weird.
Yeah, we have to discuss the whole book.
Yeah.
What kind of world would that be?
I know. Like, how long do we go? Could we have like 5 hours? Or... Oh, man, that'd be intense.
So, yeah. We will see you for whatever ends up happening on the next couple of episodes before we hopefully get back into Elantris with Elantris chapters 7, 8, and 9 when we get back to the book. So thanks everyone for listening. I hope you guys have enjoyed our little diversion from the norm here, and buzzing to the time of next, everyone.
Music by Miracle of Sound.
Damn it. Yep, that's the thing. Music by Miracle of Sound. Oh, and I can actually say this week, we are using the song Commander Shepard based on Mass Effect. I couldn't remember the name of that game for a minute. And we're doing it simply because I like the song, and it didn't seem like the kind of song that would ever fit into any of the books that we're going to read. So,
we both like the song. It's a good one. Hope you guys enjoy it too.
So here it is. Cut to the music. Okay. Let me stop the recording.
We can fight like a Krogan, run like a leopard, but you
Never be better than Commander Shepard. Assuming control.
Oh. This review says, okay, hold on. We're gonna. No, I'm not gonna read that because it doesn't make any sense. But it says, I really enjoyed the first 3 books in this series. This was just not good.
Wait, okay.
I don't know what that.
It sounds like they're reading a different series.
Yep, that's what it sounds like. All right.
First 3 books were great. What if they had read the 3rd one before the 2nd one by accident and they thought it was the 2nd one? Although I feel like they would probably be confused.
It says he tried to continue a story with the most boring characters from the first books, and it just did not work. I couldn't make it through the first
books. I couldn't make it through the 4th book. What is he talking about?
I don't know what this person is talking about. Oh my gosh. I mean,
I almost wish you could use that, but I mean, it makes no sense.
No, it makes no sense. So yeah, okay. I might throw that in there when we get, if we need a funny one and we're not getting a funny one to talk about. I realized when I was editing this last one, like, we make way less Futurama references when Dac's not here. Okay.
Second.
Okay.
No, I was saying I second that. Second.
Oh, I thought you said just a second. Okay.
Like Scruffy, the janitor.
No, I don't think I'm going to read this one but I'll read it for you because this review says, why is this even in here? And then it says, love this series until nudity was mentioned in a sexual manner. I'm a Christian, and that's where I draw my line.
Wait, when is nudity mentioned? When they have sex? Because they're married?
I guess, yes, after they get married, when they have sex. That's the only time that I can think of it.
But that's when you're supposed to do that.
Yeah. Hey, I don't know, man.
That's weird.